Welcome back to my little corner of the baseball world. My name's Chris, and I'll be sharing with you today a PSA reveal on cards from the 1950s. These cards were submitted and received back in November. They went a little bit past the 65 days standard turnaround. Not sure exactly what the holdup on these were, but we're happy to have them back. I will add that we did two other submissions after this one, and both of those came back pretty quickly, and both underneath their estimates. So for whatever reason, 50s cards seemed to be a little bit of a slowdown, but that's okay. So we'll talk about today's submission and reveal. We have 23 cards. Most of these are going to be from my buddy James. The last 4 cards will be mine. As you can see there, that we have a couple of cards in cardboard that did not make the grade. We'll cover those and take a look at those and see. I will say this is not a true blind reveal. I did check the grades online about 2 weeks ago. They've been sitting on the floor of my office for about a week and a half, preparing for me to be able to shoot this video. So the package was just opened right before we started shooting today. I wanted to spare you me fumbling around trying to cut into cardboard packaging, removing bubble wrap. I've tried it before. It's not pretty, so I wanted to save you that headache. So let's slide these aside, and we will get to those here in just a sec. Now, my background today, I want to kind of give you take a look. We've got cards, some of my favorite cards from the 1950s. These are not part of the reveal. They're just out of my collection. And a couple of my favorite autographed baseballs, again, that apply to the theme of the day of the 50s. So we'll take a look at these. We'll take a look at the cards. We'll have a little bit of fun. We'll talk a little bit about players and the cards themselves. And so this will be a little bit different. If you haven't seen one of my videos, I go through the grades. I talk about the players. I give little tidbits about their careers. There's certain specifics. I try not to go too long. I am contemplating shooting another video with these same cards with just revealing grades, kind of a condensed version, if you will, but we'll see how that goes. But that's the basis here. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learn something. And maybe you can take away 1 or 2 tidbits that you had not heard before or had not remembered, had forgotten over the years. So before we get started, I'm going to, as much as I hate to do this, because this may be the favorite card of mine in my collection. Satchel Paige 53 was a big get for me. I love the card. It's beautiful. It's centered well, and it's a lovely part of my collection. However, he is not the subject of any of the cards today, and so we won't be discussing him any further. So I'm going to substitute Ernie Banks, who will be one of our topics for today. So I'm going to slide Ernie right in there and go from there. And all of the cards that you see there, we will have cards in today's submission from there. So I'm going to put these here. Give me just 1 second while I take these out of the box. I'm going to throw the box on the floor. Set this stack right here. Don't know if you can see, probably see the corner of it, but that's okay. All of these cards are going to be primarily low to mid-grade. They're submitted. They're all PC cards. None of these are, buying, trying to sell. They're 50s icons that we wanted to become preserved, get them into slabs, and get them graded. Grading is about the money, but it is not about the money. It's not all about the money anyway. So sometimes we make decisions to grade cards that may not make perfect financial sense, but in the long run, I think it's best for certain players and certain levels of cards to just go ahead and get them slabbed, even if they're low grade. So anyway, let's start off with the first 2 cards here. I'm going to pull these out and go here. The first card here, excuse me, that was in there pretty tight, was a 1958 Stan Musial All-Star. And as you can see, it came back altered. This is one of James' cards. I'm not sure what happened here. I didn't notice anything when we put the sub together. I'll have to look at it a little bit deeper. He bought this online, and I was a little disappointed in that. It wasn't a high-grade card, mind you, but at the same time, alter is just a little bit of a head-scratcher. So I'm not saying it's not altered. I'm just saying it's not something that we expected. Anyway, the next card is a 1959 Aaron Hits Home Run, World Series home run. It's the dreaded min size required. Again, this one's a bit of a head scratcher simply because I measured all of these cards before we sent them. So either I missed something or who knows. I'm not perfect, so there's very possibility that I may have looked at it and looked close enough that I didn't dig any further on it. So, but that one unfortunately came back min size required. The good thing about that is that PSA does not charge for those, so we saved our fee there. All right, now let's get to the cards and go from here. We're going to start off with the same exact card we just looked at, the Aaron Club's World Series home run. And this card came back a 1. It's well loved. This is none of these grades as you see are surprises, other than the two that we just looked at. All of these came in about where we expected them to be. Still in a slab. This is a nice looking card. And there's one tidbit about this that I found interesting. This is a 1959 card. It says Aaron Club's World Series homer. The Braves played the Yankees in both 1957 and 1958 World Series. As a 59 card, you would think that this home run and this event came from the 58 World Series. However, Hank Aaron did not hit any home runs in 1958 series. He hit 3, however, in the 57 series. So a 59 card is basically celebrating Aaron hitting a home run 2 years earlier. Thought that was kind of interesting. All right, let's move forward here to the next card. This is a Stan Musial Wraps Out 3000th hit. We got a 2 on this one. Again, typical of the series here. We're going to see some low to mid grade cards. Stan Musial is one of the all-time best left-handed hitters of the game. I'll mention an interesting thing about this. He got his 3000th hit playing in Wrigley Field against the Cubs. What was interesting about it is he was not in the lineup that day, and the Cardinals were scheduled to go back home to play the Giants the next day. So I'm making an assumption here that he wasn't in the lineup because they wanted him to get his 3000th hit at home, which would make sense. That's been done before. However, the Cardinals were behind, and they made the decision to have Musial pinch hit, and he came into the game, quickly wrapped a RBI double, and the Cardinals came back to win the game 5-3. So Cubs fans, from what I have read and understand, gave him a standing ovation and gave him all the love that he should have gotten. But unfortunately for him and Cardinals fans, he did not get that at home. One other just quick tidbit. We'll actually talk more about Musial on another card later. So we'll move on from here because I don't want this to drag too long. This one is a Mantle hits 42nd home run for a title. This is also a 59 tops. This was a 1. This one's that has tape on the front and the back. Again, one of James' inexpensive pickups, but it's a Mantle. And at the same time, we wanted to go ahead and get that slabbed. We just have to deal with the tape. Aside from that, it's still a well-loved card, but it's not terribly from an eye appeal standpoint. So Mantle hit 42 home runs that year. He edged out Rocky Colavito, who hit 41. Next is the Braves Fence Busters card. with 4 players that have Joe Adcock, Dale Crandall, Hank Aaron, and Eddie Matthews. We'll talk about Aaron and Matthews more later. I'll mention, and this card got a 2 as well. I don't want to forget about talking about the card too. Just a couple of quick tidbits. Joe Adcock had a 17-year Major League career. 10 of those years were with the Braves. He hit .277 and had 336 home runs, mostly as a first baseman. He was a 2-time All-Star and finished in the top 20, in MVP voting 4 times. So Adcock was definitely a solid player. Del Crandall had a 16-year career, was a catcher, spent 13 of those years with the Braves, was a 4-time Gold Glove winner, 11-time All-Star. He also had a managerial career. He managed the Brewers for 4 years, and I believe Seattle for the other 2 years. I may be wrong on the second team. But Crandall was a good player. He one of the years that he managed the Brewers was 75, which was the first year that Aaron had left the Braves to come back to Milwaukee, and was also Robin Yount's rookie year. So, and one last tidbit on Crandall. I mentioned this in a different video before. I'm from Evansville, Indiana, is where I'm originally from, home of Donnie baseball. Crandall played for the Evansville Braves in 1949 before on his way up to the big leagues, and was also somewhere in the 60s after he retired. He was the manager for the Evansville minor league team there as well, who later became the Evansville Triplets, which was the AAA affiliate of the Detroit Tigers. But for about 15 or 20 years, they were a Braves affiliate. And Crandall was a manager in Evansville on his way back to the major leagues as a manager. All right, we'll move on there and go to this next card. The National League Hitting Kings. We got Richie Ashburn, Willie Mays. This one got a 2 as well. Ashburn was a 6-time All-Star, won 2 batting titles, was a longtime leadoff hitter for the Phillies, and is a Hall of Famer as well. And we all know about Willie Mays, so we don't need to belabor the point here or there. Next up is Roger Maris. My buddy James is a big Roger Maris collector. Second only probably to his love and affection for collecting Dale Murphy. This one's got a mark. Unfortunately, somebody decided to draw on it at a certain point. I'm not exactly sure what the purpose of just a circle there was, what they were trying to do with that. But this is a second-year Roger Maris. It got a 3 MK. Let me just see if we can get that focused well enough for you to see that. Got a 3 MK with it. If you can get past the circle, it still presents quite well. Card 202 there. So we'll move on from there. Next, Mr. Tiger Al Kaline. We got a 58. Al Kaline spent his career with the Tigers 22 years. This one got a 2 as well. Again, all of these cards have been loved. There's no secret there. 22 years for the Tigers, 18 All-Star games, 10 Gold Gloves in right field for the Tigers, and ended up with 399 home runs. Hall of Famer, and definitely one of the best Tigers of all time, and one of the best players of that era. Next, we will move on to a 1958 Warren Spahn. Warren Spahn is interesting. I don't think he gets enough love for, and I'm going to actually see if I can't adjust this to see if I can kill some of this glare. And that's not helping me much. Okay. Warren is one of the best left-handed pitchers of all time. 363 wins. He did miss the 50 or 45 season to military duty. Actually, let me take that back. He missed 3 years to military duty. I had my notes wrong on that. But is the winningest all-time left-handed pitcher. Spahn was clutch. He had a huge World Series for the Braves in 1958. He started game 1 and went full 10 innings and got the win, got a 4-3 win in 10 innings to lead off against the Yankees and get the first win. Came back on 3 days rest, pitched a complete game shutout 2-hitter, and won 3-0, and put the Braves up 3-1 at that point. This is the 58 World Series. Spahn then came back 2 days later, or on 2 days rest, excuse me. No, and pitched game 6. So he went from game 1 to game 4 to game 6, going the distance every time. In game 6, he goes 9 2/3 innings, and unfortunately takes the loss in the 10th inning, 4-3 again. And the Yankees came back from a 3-1 deficit, won the last 3 games, and won that World Series after the Braves had bested them in 57. But Spahn in that 3 games in that series had 28 2/3 innings pitched, 19 hits, only gave up 7 earned runs, had a 2.2 ERA and a .942 WHIP. That's pretty dominating against the team of the 50s and the New York Yankees. Lastly, I'll mention that Warren Spahn also spent time in Evansville, Indiana, pitching in 1941 for the Evansville Bees, as they were called at the time. They were the Class B affiliate of the Braves, and Warren Spahn went 19-6 in 1941 in Evansville, playing in Bosse Field, which is the 4th oldest standing ballpark in the country, and the ballpark where I played high school and college games. Next, we're going to move on to 1955 Bowman. We're going to take a look at a Whitey Ford here. This one got a 1. I thought we had a shot at a 2 on here, but there was a crease here. I'm not sure if I can actually figure out how to show you where that crease is, but nonetheless, still nice looking card. Got some worn corners for sure. But Whitey Ford was the Yankees' ace through the 50s. He pitched in 22 World Series games, all starts, in 11 different World Series from 1950 to 1964. Ford was a staple in the Yankees rotation and often got the ball in either game 1 or often both in game 1 and the final game of the World Series if it went deep. Again, one of the better left-handed pitchers of all time. Next up, we've got, let me see if I can adjust lighting here a tad bit here. We have a 55 Bowman Pee Wee Reese. This particular Pee Wee here got a VG3. Pee Wee was a solid Hall of Fame shortstop, more known for his glove than his bat, but a key part of very, very successful teams for the Dodgers in the 50s. And one of Pee Wee's biggest claims to fame, and I'm not sure that's totally fair because he was a heck of a player, is that he's kind of known for being accepting of Jackie Robinson when Jackie came in and joined the Brooklyn Dodgers. There was a lot of turmoil at that time. A lot of players voiced displeasure and did not want to play with Jackie. Pee Wee showed his support and basically kind of cemented the fact that Jackie was there to stay, and the players who didn't like it were just going to have to deal with it. So Pee Wee's kind of credited for helping Jackie along in the early times. So anyway, nice Pee Wee Reese there. Next up, we are in 56, George Kell. Kell is a Hall of Famer, was a lighter hitting third baseman. He had won a batting title, hit .343 in 1949, .340 in 1950. Just a good, solid professional hitter. He played much of his career with the Tigers, but did play for, I believe, 7 different teams along the way. Actually 5 different teams, excuse me, on that. So this Mr. Kell here got a good 2. Again, nice card from 1956 with some good color, and nothing jumps out at you to make you want to look away. It's a nice looking card. Next, we are going to go back to 1959. Don Drysdale. We got a 2 here. Lots of just general wear on this card. Nothing that stands out, but corners, edges. Still has good color. Drysdale, along with Sandy Koufax, was part of the Dodgers 1-2 punch, and possibly at least one of the best 1-2 punches from a pitching standpoint in Major League history. Drysdale's a Hall of Famer, 9-time All-Star, won a Cy Young Award. Just a really, really solid pitcher that sometimes gets a little bit overshadowed by Sandy Koufax. One of the other kind of notes for Drysdale that I had is that he had a budding TV career and that made appearances on several TV shows, including The Rifleman, which was the star of The Rifleman TV show was Chuck Connors, who was a former Major League player as well, and played in the Major Leagues before he, I guess, diverted into acting. Also made a appearance on Leave It to Beaver, and for those in my age range are probably going to remember more, he was a guest of Mike Brady on The Brady Bunch and kind of lectured Greg Brady on the importance of education and that being a baseball star was not all glitz and glamour and money, and kind of brought Greg back to reality when Greg Brady thought he was going to be the greatest and next best thing. So, but Drysdale, I remember that well, was on that episode and was very well known for that. So anyway, we'll move on here and go and stick in 59 with Eddie Matthews. Ed Matthews with the Braves. Interesting thing about Eddie, played for 17 years. He's a Hall of Famer. He is the only Brave to play in all 3 cities. Matthews, and this card, by the way, this card got a 2. Matthews started his career with the Boston Braves. They moved to Milwaukee, and then he actually finished his career with Atlanta. I say finished. He finished his career in Detroit and actually was part of the Detroit 1968 World Series team. But he finished his Braves career in Atlanta, playing in all 3 cities. He's the only Brave that did that. So, again, nice looking card. Got some love. Centering's not perfect, but it's a 2, and we're going to take that and move on. Next, we've got a handful of All-Stars from, I believe these are all 50. Now, this one is 59. The others are 58s. This is a Hank Aaron. Again, this one has and I don't know if you can see that very well or not, but it has a pretty good crease going across right up underneath his elbow and across the Braves logo. But a nice card from my buddy James, just to preserve and keep a nice, one of the best hitters and the best players ever to play the game. Let me also mention real quickly, on what some of you may or may not know, when Hank Aaron was scouted by professional baseball, he was scouted by both the Braves and the Giants. He signed with the Braves because they offered $50 more than the Giants. If it were not for that $50 and he signed with the Giants, you would have had an outfield teammates of Hank Aaron and Willie Mays. Yet $50 was the sole difference in the reason he signed with the Braves. And we missed the opportunity to see Hank Aaron and Willie Mays play together for many, many years. I thought that was an interesting tidbit. We'll move on to the next one, is a Mr. Cub Ernie Banks. With this one, we got a 4. I believe we're focused in on that well enough. Nice looking card. Banks is one of the best players to never play in the World Series. Unfortunately, was part of coming up in the Cubs organization, is they just never could quite get it done. The last of the 58 All-Stars is another well-loved version of Ted Williams. We got a poor one. As you can see, we got a little chunk of the corner missing. This one has definitely seen some action in its day. I always wonder sometimes, where a card has been. So what's its story from the time someone opened this card in 1958 to now in the shape that it's in? It just always is intriguing to me, and I like to think about it. But we got a 1 on this one. I'll flip it around to the back. I want to mention a couple things about Ted Williams. We could talk about Ted Williams all day long, and I'm not going to do that. But a couple things about Ted Williams you may or may not know. Most of you are going to know that he played, or he missed almost 5 full seasons to military duty, 3 in World War II, and almost 2 full seasons in Korea. He played for 6 games, I believe, in 1952, went off to war, and then came back for the final 37 games of 1953. Williams was a fighter pilot and in the military, so he was out there right in the middle of everything. One of the things that I found really, really cool is that when he went back for his duty in Korea, he was a co-pilot in a fighter jet, and the main pilot along with Ted Williams was astronaut John Glenn, or future astronaut John Glenn. So I find that to be a very, very interesting combination. Let's move on here to, again, a well-loved Brooks Robinson rookie card here. This one is interesting because it got a 1 miscut grade. And at the time, I don't recall ever seeing one of those. Generally, I was kind of thought a 1 was a 1, and it didn't really matter. But as I kind of dug in a little bit, I did find others, so that does exist. I'm still not 100% sure that it's miscut, but it's tight over there on the right. I don't think it matters at this level. I mean, it's, again, a card with a lot of history, a lot of love, and a rookie card of a Hall of Famer. So we're going to take it, keep it in a slab, keep it preserved, and move forward. Robinson, for those of you that do not know, won 16 gold gloves, was an 18-time All-Star, and his nickname is the Human Vacuum Cleaner. All right, next up are the last 4 cards. They are mine. As you can see from my display here, I've got a couple of Pee Wee Reese cards on the flanks. Another good buddy of mine who did not have cards in this submission is a big Pee Wee Reese fan. In fact, his grandfather was friends with Pee Wee, and when he used to go to Louisville, Kentucky to visit his grandfather when he was a kid, his grandfather would take him to Pee Wee's house and they would hang out. So we actually just did a sub not long ago, and this was before I started shooting videos, but of 3 cards, a 56 tops, a 55 Bowman, and a 57 tops that Pee Wee signed for him in Pee Wee's living room back in the, I guess, early 80s it would have probably been. But still thought that was kind of neat. So Dave's search for Pee Wee cards has kind of gotten me into to picking up his cards as well. So we got the 53 and the 58 there. The first 2 cards of my submission are Pee Wee's as well. This one is a 57. And it's a really nice looking card. I mean, it's got some typical wear on it. It's got decent centering. And came back a 5. Kind of had hopes for a 6, but really a 5 is about where I expected it to be. A 6 would have been a major victory. A 5 was pretty much hitting on expectations. But it's still nice looking card. We've talked about Pee Wee already, so we'll kind of move forward with that. But happy to have that one in the collection. Next is my own 55 Bowman Pee Wee Reese. Picked this one up, gosh, over a year ago. And just a very, very nice looking card. These Bowmans, I've warmed up to them. I really didn't like them for many, many years. I've warmed up to them a good bit. And when they have good color, when they're in decent condition and not really just beat up, they really look nice. This one also came back a 5, so we added two 5s to the Reese collection. And again, it's a nice looking card. Happy to have it. And we're going to take the grade and call that a nice little victory there. And again, let's just see if I can't get that without some glare there. And go from there. Last 2 cards. This one is my own Stan Musial All-Star from 1958. nice looking card, not without its issues. Had a soft corner towards the bottom right side. Was kind of hoping we might see a 4 out of this. It came back a 3. But I think it's got good eye appeal for the grade, and will happily add it to my collection there. Let me also mention what many of you may not know. Stan Musial ended his career with 3,630 hits. Exactly 1,815 of those were done at home, and exactly 1,815 were on the road. It's about as consistent as you can get for a player, and there was a reason they called him Stan the Man, one of baseball's best. All right, last card is a 1959 Hank Aaron. It's a card that I picked up at a local card show probably a year and a half ago. Figured, what the heck, let's get it slabbed. It's not high grade. Just it is what it is for the time frame and the era. It's a nice looking 2. Again, wasn't perfectly glossy, wasn't perfectly centered, but at the same time had no major defects that made me want to not be proud to own it. So we got a 2 on the final Hank Aaron. I am going to tell a quick story about Hank Aaron here, because it also relates back to home before we wrap this up. Before Hank signed in 1952 with the Braves, he played in 26 games with the Indianapolis Clowns of the Negro National League. The Clowns, after the Negro Leagues disbanded, the Indianapolis Clowns continued and were kind of a past version of what the Harlem Globetrotters became. They were a traveling show. There was some comedy and some acts, in with their games, but they flat out had some guys that could play too. And they've really become a precursor to the modern day Savannah Bananas. If you're not familiar with the Savannah Bananas, take a look at them, pull some YouTube videos. They're definitely an interesting group, and are traveling the country, having a lot of fun playing baseball and drawing some really, really big crowds. But one of the interesting tidbits, I played against the Indianapolis Clowns in a semi-pro game back sometime around 1990. I'm going to set that aside for right now. I don't remember a whole lot of details about the game. I know that, again, they had some guys that could play. They were not a joke, but they also had some routines and some different things that they did that would entertain the crowd. So they drew crowds, and they did very well. That was by far the biggest crowd that we ever had when we hosted them. This was back when I was in Evansville before I moved south. One of the things that was interesting they did is they had a player, and I wish I could remember more about this, but they had a player who came to the plate on crutches and literally had a set of crutches underneath each armpit and stood at the plate with a bat in his hand. And the routine with this was that they had another player stand behind him. At a certain point, they drew a line, and when he hit the ball, the other player would run. He was a left-handed hitter, I remember that. The pitcher that we had throwing that day had minor league experience, was a Division I college player, and threw low to mid-90s and had some cheese on the ball. And I don't remember the specifics other than the fact that he did not strike out that batter. He did hit the ball, and the 90s plus fastball was not too much for him to hit the ball while standing on crutches with the crutches below your armpits. It was a pretty fun time. It was very interesting that was not something that could keep him from playing. And we had a really good time that day. But I just thought I would mention that about the Indianapolis Clowns. I don't know if they're still going or not, or what form they've taken. If they are, this was again back sometime around 1990. So let me wrap up here. Again, thank you for joining me. I know we've gone a little long with this one, but I hope you've enjoyed it. I've hoped that you maybe have learned one or two things along the way, or found some of these stories or asides interesting. If you like what you've heard and would like to see and hear more, Please like and subscribe. That's very important. It's very helpful to the channel. I mentioned this before, any comments, opinions, corrections, anything you'd like to share in the comments, I'd really, really appreciate that and would love to interact with you at some point. We will be doing some more of these videos. We'll also do some videos where I tell some more stories. Again, I worked in minor league baseball for a while. I grew up watching Don Mattingly play when Donnie was a high schooler, and saw Don Mattingly play his junior and senior year of high school. So he was a hero to me long before he ever hit New York. And I ended up playing for the same coach in high school and going to the same high school as Mattingly did. So lots of stories, lots of different things. We'll add some of those tidbits periodically from time to time, and hopefully you will enjoy it, and we'll be able to do something a little bit different there. Again, thank you. Have a great rest of your day, and appreciate you joining us.